Hi, this is Mike Nielsen. I'd like to start by welcoming you to this Book a Day Kindle short reads training, in which I will show you everything you need to know to write and publish a 6,000 word short story in a single day. Now, obviously, before we get started with that, that does assume that you do have a full day available to you. The entire process is 6.5 hours long, give and take, and assumes that you can write 500 words in a minute. If neither of those are possible for you at this stage, all you have to do is keep at it, and eventually you will get there. Now, if you can't do all of this in a single day, then this system is great because you can sort of divide it up to several days and do it in the space of 2, 3, or 4 days. But let's get the show on the road. The concept is simple. We want to keep it simple, and that's because the best plans are always the simple ones. So you need an idea for a story, and ideas are basically everywhere around you. You just have to sort of keep your eyes open for them. They are in news stories, they are in books, in movies, and in the people around you. All of those are great sources for story ideas. Then you need an outline, which I will show you exactly how to create. And you need a plan of action for making this happen, which I will obviously also show you. So the idea, of course, you have to come up with the idea. And as I said, look around you, look at movies, books you like, news stories, and try to form an idea from those. When you've done that, what you need to do is sort of organize your ideas, and I like to do that in something called a story summary. A story summary consists of a story premise, a weakness for the lead character, a need for the lead character to have, a desire for the lead character to have, and an antagonist to oppose the lead character. Now, the premise is sort of the elevator pitch of your story. This is where if you met someone in the elevator and they asked you about the story you were working on, it would be 1 or 2 paragraphs at most, defining what your story is about. And throughout this training, I'm going to use an example of a fantasy story that I would possibly go on and write myself. Laslan Helmlock is facing the most daunting challenge of his life, as his cousin, the evil queen Shani Bloodwinter, is marching towards the city of Mount Flame, which he is sworn to protect. So, that's not all, because she has the unlimited power of the evil god Guy at her disposal, and a lifelong dream of slaying the noble Laslan. So that's sort of the elevator pitch of the story, and in the antagonist section, we're obviously going to get into more about the antagonist and why she wants to achieve what it is she wants to achieve. The weakness is all about the lead character. There are no perfect characters. If you create a perfect character with no flaws or weaknesses, you're going to be writing a boring story, and you don't want to do that. And it's also something that adds another layer of complication to your character and sort of helps drive the transformative character arc of the story. In this case, Laslan is sometimes absent-minded as he is weighed down by the burden of destiny. An old prophecy claims that he will lead the city to greatness after a great war has left it in ruins. So that's a huge burden for the character, and to protect himself, he seems absent-minded and somewhat emotionally cold. The need of the lead character is often tied into the weakness, and this is not necessarily something the character actually wants, but it is something that he needs in terms to become a better person. And in this case, Laslan's absent-mindedness makes him distant in his emotional relationships. Since he knows the horrors facing him and the country, he is afraid to form tight bonds with anyone, but in reality what he needs to become a truly great warrior is an emotional bond with the people he is sworn to protect. And the logic behind this, from my perspective as the writer, is that this guy is supposed to be a great hero and protector of the city, but how will he be able to put everything on the line if he basically doesn't care about the citizens of the city? So this is what he needs to become a truly great protector of the city. His desire is what he wants to achieve in the story, and this is very different from the need, because the need is what he needs to achieve and the desire is what he wants. And the conflict between those two will often be very critical to the transformative character arc of the story. In this case, Laslan knows that what his destiny is, and works towards achieving greatness for the people with as little of the pain as possible. So he knows the prophecy says that he will lead the city to greatness, but not before it has undergone great horrors, and his goal here is to get to the greatness part without the horror and the pain and all of that. Obviously, that's not always possible, especially not in a fantasy story, but that's what he wants. Then we get to the antagonist, which is obviously the character who is opposing the lead character. Shani Bloodwinter was adopted by the Helmlock family after her family was killed by barbarian orcs. She always envied Laslan because she was destined for greatness, so she has this yearning to become great as well. She devoted herself to the study of magic, seeing that as her path to greatness. Eventually she started studying the dark arts, but when Laslan's mother, Isensong, discovered that what she was doing, she forbid her from studying magic. And well, I'm guessing that did not make Shani Bloodwinter too happy, because now Laslan's mother is actively stopping her from achieving the greatness she so desperately wants, and envies Laslan for being destined for. And yes, in retaliation, she cast a curse on Laslan's mother that caused Isensong to die a slow and painful death. Tough stuff here. Now she is determined to destroy Laslan and anyone close to him. And I think actually what I want to do here is, at some point she probably wants to kill Laslan, but at first she wants to sort of go after everyone that's close to him, so that even if he does achieve this greatness that he is destined for, he will be alone and miserably and unhappy and in a really bad place. So it's envy which is driving Shani towards destroying Laslan and the city, because she knows he cares about the city. Maybe at this point he doesn't care so much about the people in the city, but he is very tightly devoted to protecting the actual city, so she wants to destroy it. The next part is the outline of the story, which again is a pretty simple outline, and I am using the Lester Dent master plot formula, and you can see in orange text here to the right the link to where you can find the full Lester Dent master plot formula. And also, if you download the PDF, which is you can do by clicking the link just below this video, you'll be able to obviously click on the link and go to the page. But here in this video I'm sort of going to show you an abbreviated form of the master plot formula. So let's get into it. Here's the basic stuff. First of all, the villain needs to act in an unusual way to achieve his goal. Something unusual for the villain to want. The villain is going after, he or she, needs to be something unusual. And the setting has to be somewhat different. And finally, there needs to be a threat that's hanging over the hero at all times. Now, you don't have to come up with unusual things for all of these points, but at least one or two of them, you should try to have them be something slightly different. So, in this story, which I am at this point, that's a working title, March on the City of Mount Flame. Here's what I've come up with. Shani Bloodwinter has sold her soul to the evil god Guy to gain unlimited power. Shani Bloodwinter wants to destroy the city and kill everyone close to Laslan Helmlock. Another key point is that when you come up with funny names for your characters, you have to sort of learn how to pronounce them correctly. That's really great if you can do that. I just failed to do it, so that's sort of a what not to do sort of advice. So the city of Mount Flame is a city located on the slopes of an active volcano. Now, what makes this sort of different is that it's not a dormant volcano. This is an active volcano that's spewing lava and all of that stuff all of the time. And somehow that is protecting, there's a bond between the city and the volcano, which is protecting the city, which I define in point 4. So the threat that's hanging over the hero is that if the bond between the city and the volcano is broken, the volcano will destroy the city. Right now, imagine having a city that is surrounded by a moat with molten lava in it. That's going to be pretty tough to sort of invade the city, to sack the city. It's almost virtually impossible. So right now, the volcano and the city have a bond where the volcano is protecting the city, but if that is broken, the volcano is going to destroy the city. So that's a huge threat, and that is probably going to be something Shani is aiming to do. So the way it works is that in the Lester Dent master plot formula, he divides it into 4 different sections. Each section is a 1500 word section. And in the first section, you have these points. You introduce the hero and the problems facing him. You get the hero into the action as soon as possible. You introduce all major characters of the story as soon as possible. And by the end of the 1500 words, you need to have the hero tangled up in some sort of physical conflict before you throw in a plot twist. And there are going to be a lot of plot twists. And when you've written these 1500 words, you have to ask yourself, is it suspenseful? Is there a menace? And does everything happen in a sort of logical fashion? Now, for the city of Mount Flame, this is what I came up with. The city sentinel alerts Laslan that Shani and her undead army is marching against the city. Uh-oh, that's a huge threat. Laslan moves to mobilize the army and barricade the city. We introduce all the major characters as soon as possible. At this point, we've introduced Laslan, probably some of the ranking officers of the army. We've introduced Shani and her undead army, and maybe I'll be looking to sort of introduce another character to sort of work on Laslan's need and the transformative aspect of the story. Maybe someone he would come to care about, a child or a woman or something like that that he needs to protect. That's something I might consider sort of introducing at this stage. Then a group of skeleton scouts reach the city walls and Laslan engages him. Remember, we need to get him into the conflict as quickly as possible to really ramp up the action. Action is the key to these types of stories. So Laslan will be battling these skeleton scouts and trying to fend them off, maybe with a group of his men. But a skeleton dragon appears on the horizon. So, these skeleton scouts might have been pretty tough to sort of destroy or obliterate or whatever, but on the horizon there is a skeleton dragon which is huge and menacing and dangerous, and that's something he is going to have to deal with. Then we get to the second 1500 words. Things look bad for the hero in the first section, you make them worse. And that's, with the less dense plot formula, that's something that's also a key element. Always make things worse, no matter how bad it looks for the hero. Try to make it even worse. The hero struggles with the trouble he is in, and that leads to another physical conflict. Obviously, if you're writing romance, this is going to be somewhat different, and you probably won't be working as much with a physical conflict. A surprising plot twist to end the 1500 words. Plot twists, we love them. And again, does it have suspense? Is the menace growing like a black cloud? Is the hero getting it in the neck? And is the second part logical? And for March on the City of Mount Flame, that looks like this. The skeleton dragon arrives. Remember, we had to make things worse. Laslan leads a band of warriors against it, and they fight it. Physical conflict. When the skeleton dragon rips into the soldiers, they turn into zombies and surround Laslan. So things just got a bit worse because those who were his allies a few seconds ago are now turning on him and have become part of Shani's undead army. That's not a good thing. In the third 1500 words, does it still have suspense? Let's see. Things were bad for the hero, make them worse. The hero makes some progress and maybe even corners the villain. A physical conflict, of course. A plot twist that makes things really bad for the hero, and that comes near the end of the 1500 words. And for March on the City of Mount Flame, that goes like this. Surrounded by zombie soldiers and backed up against the city gate, the undead army hits it with a ram. Obviously, that's Laslan who's surrounded by zombie soldiers. That could have been a bit more clear in the text. Laslan sets the creatures on fire with a torch and rallies the troops. So he figures out they have a weakness, and just as the army is about to invade the city, he finds that weakness, and armed with torches and other fiery items, they tear into the undead army. I picture them firing flaming arrows from their bows and stuff like that. All kinds of exciting stuff. Then Laslan hears Shani laugh, and this has to be sort of an ominous laughter, evil laughter, like probably in more of a female type of voice. And she is riding on another skeleton dragon over the city towards the top of the volcano. She must be up to something. You see, Laslan is pretty smart. He's not just a dumb fighter type hero. He knows she must be up to something. And when she's heading for the volcano, he obviously knows about the bond between the city and the volcano. I imagine this is some type of legend they've all been hearing about throughout their childhood. And so in this case, it's really a bad thing that she's heading to the top of the volcano. The fourth, 1500 words. Make things harder on the hero. The hero has clearly had it far too easy up until this point. The problems are now so bad it seems impossible for the hero to win. The hero does win, and he does so by applying his own skills, brawns, and abilities. And you've probably noticed that the last part of that sentence is bolded, and that's because that is absolutely critically important. It has to be the hero who does the hard work. It has to be him who, by using his own abilities, wins the battle in the end. You can't have someone coming in to save him. That ruins the entire story. So it has to be the hero who does the hard work. There's one big mystery left which will be solved during the final conflict. A final surprising plot twist and a punchline to end the story. And yeah, that's the end of the Less Than End Master Platformer. Let's just quickly take a look at that for the March on the City of Mount Flame. Laslan races to catch up with Shani. When he arrives at the top of the volcano, she is chanting, "Uh-oh, that can't be good." As she chants, the eruptions become more violent and the lava is hurtling towards the city, which is going to kill everyone in the city and be a really, really bad thing. Using all his might and cleverness, Laslan manages to push Shani into the volcano. The lava that was headed for the city changes its path back to its usual route. And when Laslan turns his back to the volcano, he hears an ominous call from Shani. So probably she's not as dead as he assumes she is. And remember earlier we talked about how she had sold her soul to the evil god Guy? That probably has something to do with this. And we can probably expect her to be back at some point. So this is the outline, and obviously as you write, things will come up that will change how this works, and new characters might be introduced and stuff like that. And in my opinion, you should just go with that. However, use this outline as a roadmap to make sure you get to the end of the story. Then, to do it in one day, you need a plan. And there's something called the Pomodoro technique, and clicking that link or going to that web address in orange will take you to the page where it is showed in full how it works. It's a really simple time management technique that will help you be more productive when you do your writing. So it works like this. First you choose a task, then you set a timer for 25 minutes. During those 25 minutes you work on the task until the timer rings. Then you check off your task and take a 5-minute break. And every 4 Pomodoros you take a longer 25-minute break. And that's it. And for the 6,000 word short story, here is how that plan would work. This is assuming you can write 25 minutes, this is assuming you can write 500 words in 25 minutes, which is very much possible. If you can't do that now, it is something you will be able to in time. And you will notice that when you use these focused 25-minute stints, you are way more productive when you write than you usually are. So even if this sounds impossible right now, let me assure you it's not. In time you will be able to do it like this. First you do a Pomodoro with 500 words, then you take a 5-minute break, 500 words, a 5-minute break, another 500 words, a 5-minute break, 500 words, you guessed that. And then there's a wee surprise here. you take a 25-minute break. Now you've done a full Pomodoro and you have written the entire first section of the story, and you've actually started on the second one. So that's great. That's awesome. This sequence is a 2-hour and 20-minute sequence, and to complete the story you have to repeat it 3 times, and that is 6 hours and 35 minutes. Because obviously you don't need to take a long break after finishing the story. During each of these full Pomodoros, you'll be able to write 2,000 words, which is a third of your story. So if you have a full day set aside for this, you can easily achieve this as soon as you get to those 500 words in a 25-minute stint. Now, if you can't do this in one day, I recommend trying doing one of these full Pomodoros every day at night. That is spending the 2 hours and 25 minutes. Obviously, you probably don't have to do the 25-minute break at the end, so that becomes 1 hour and 55 minutes. And then in 3 days, you will have written your entire short story, and you will be able to publish it. So that's pretty much as simple as that. And that actually takes us to the end of it. If you need any support or have any questions, you can email me at master@kdmastery.com. Sometimes, I always try to reply to support mails as quickly as possible, and people who've been customers with me for a while will know that I often manage to do this within just 1 or 2 hours, but you know, sometimes life happens and we have weekends and holidays and stuff like that. So sometimes it might be as much as 72 hours. However, that is extremely rare. Almost never happens. But if I have not replied to you within those 72 hours, you're more than welcome to try to email me again. And well, that's pretty much it for now. What I want you to do right now is download the PowerPoint slide, watch this video again if you need to, and then start doing this. Really start doing this. And it works for pretty much every genre. I know romance is a bit different because you don't have a clear antagonist, but it can be adapted to this. But especially every other genre out there, pretty much this is easily adaptable to those. Usually I write sort of crime thrillers, vigilante justice type of thrillers, and it works well for those as well. Obviously, if you aspire to write novels, actual novels of 50,000 words or more, this formula can be adapted to that. However, you obviously need to account for the fact that it's going to take a lot more time and that each section needs a lot more words. So, having said that, get started with this, get the ball rolling, and write some kick-ass short stories. That's it for now.